Bird. Get him. Yeah! Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Well. Can you believe it? It's gonna be Thanksgiving. This is really a weird. I had an episode ready to load, and something. Well, I got a phone call today. And I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. I'm going to do. It's. I guess you're going to call this a Thanksgiving, or a thankful episode, or me just saying thank you to everybody that I've ever known in my entire life. I don't know how you want to phrase it. I don't even know what I'm going to title this show. But I'm going to get our sponsors out of the way because I know for a few of you it drives you crazy, and for a few of you you've told me, oh, Ron, I'll sometimes skip the show, but I always listen to the intro because you drive me crazy with it. But this is going to be a quickie. I always thank my Patreon patrons because without them, when I started doing that, that gave me that catalyst, that bump to say, okay, there's people who want to keep listening. They want to hear about dogs and people and places. So that's a given. But my Onyx Hunt, my title sponsor, Gunner Kennels, Pike Gear, Boss Shot Shells, Garmin, W Supply, Waltons, OF Mossberg & Son, Four Wheel Campers, Canine Athlete, Purina Pro Plan, Leinenkugel. I am so thankful that all these people want to advertise to all you people. And I don't think there's anything on that list that I ever be embarrassed about. You know what I mean? There's some shows out there that have mattress commercials and insurance commercials and vehicle commercials. Now, I'm not saying if, somebody gave me a truck, I wouldn't do that, okay? But basically, everything and every company who's jumped on board over the years, I want to thank them because they're making this show possible. But it goes way deeper than that. So let me just tell you about this phone call I got today. All right, I'll start with the way Sunday went. I got this laundry list of things to do in between hunting trips. And in between this one, I wasn't going to go anywhere from South Dakota until I leave later. I got Thanksgiving coming up. That's this Thursday. You might be listening to this Thursday. You might be listening to it on Monday. I don't know when you're listening to it. It doesn't matter. But it is November, and it is Thanksgiving. And I really thought, my God, do I have a lot to be thankful for. And I just thought, you know what? I'm just gonna make a few notes here and see where this goes. So my friend Frank, you're going to hear his name in a list here in a minute. My friend Frank, we met in high school. He called me up today. I was taking a nap. Now, I don't call it like a nap, like an old people's nap, even though I do take old people's naps sometimes. I have this mat. It's called a Shakti mat, okay? I think that's the way you pronounce it. It's like a bed of nails. And it is a really uncomfortable thing to put your body on. But what it does is it stimulates all the blood flow to your skin. It's like laying on 1,000 needles. And within 5 minutes, your back gets warm and hot and pulses. And within 6 to 7 minutes, wow, I'm out. So I always take my phone, I set a timer for 30 minutes. And about halfway through this, I'm sleeping, sound sleep, my phone rings, and it says Frankie Beckfar, one of my old friends from Chicago. So I hit the instant message, I'll call you back. A couple minutes later, phone rings, Frank Beckfar. I hit it back again. I'll call you back. Now I'm not going to fall back asleep. The phone rings again. I'm like, oh, shit. He's in Chicago. It's where I grew up. It's got to be bad news. Fuck, why didn't I think of that? Frank doesn't just usually call me out of the blue for nothing, let alone ring it 3 times. Now, Frank is almost a full year older than I am. He got married way late in life and just called me up to tell me that he's going to be a dad. That's so you're doing the math, right? Right? I won't tell you how he got there, but he got there. And he got married a few years back, and he's going to be a dad. And he calls me Beam. I have a lot of nicknames growing up in the city. He always calls me Beam. He says, Beam, I couldn't tell you how happy I am. He said, this is going to be the best Thanksgiving ever. I'm so thankful. Now, he never had kids before. He wasn't married until, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I stood up in his wedding. Felt kind of weird being in my late 50s standing up at a friend's wedding, right? Anyway, he was telling me how lucky he is and how thankful it is. And I was telling him how idiotic he was because he has no idea what parenthood's like, let alone at his age. But he insisted that he was thankful and he was fortunate. And I was like, well, okay, all right. And then we chit-chatted. And I thought about, I got a lot to be thankful. Maybe not everything in chronological order like it usually falls in for most people. But I started thinking about everything that I've had, everything that I've received. I thought about kids and family and friends and fortunes. And I don't mean fortunes like money. I mean like the definition of fortune is a noun. The chance happening of fortunate or adverse events, luck. The turns of luck in the course of one's life. Success, especially when at least partially resulting from luck. I'm like, fuck, my middle name should have been Fortune. Not Fortunes, but Fortune. Because I've been so freaking fortunate my entire life. I mean, this year, for example, I had the longest trip of my life away from home. Now, I have spent longer periods of time away from home when I worked on the road, putting in conveyors and warehouse systems. But this was a purposeful, I'm leaving and I'm coming back and I'm going hunting and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Longest trip of my life. I was very fortunate that I could hit a little bit of luck along the way, things that fell into place, things that made this trip logistically possible. Sure. So there was fortune involved with that. I mean, huge amounts of fortune. I started thinking about how the hell lucky am I? I mean, we're going to get to the dogs and the hunting, but I think the dogs and the hunting are just the bycatch, just simply the bycatch. So I'm thinking about how lucky and how thankful I am for growing up when I did, right? I'm getting to be pretty old. I'm getting up there, right? And I'm thankful for growing up where I did. And a lot of you would go like, you grew up in Chicago. I said, yeah, but I grew up in Chicago during a real special time when you could do whatever you want. The whole city was like public land. I could travel the entire city by bus or train or hitchhike. Had more fun than you could ever jot down. In fact, if I could have kept a journal, it would have made a good book about every shenanigan, every trip, every group of friends I hung out with, everything I did growing up in Chicago. No regrets. Very thankful. And growing up how I did. Just with the parents I had and the family and the neighbors and the security. I mean, just the simple security of growing up in one of the biggest cities in the world and being totally secure. Like there's nobody in my lifetime that I knew of from kindergarten to high school when I was done. I don't know that anything happened to anybody. I mean, a few people got spanked a little hard. A few nuns rapped their knuckles on some of my friends. A few gym teachers roughed us up once in a while. You know what? We're fortunate. We're real fortunate, which goes back to the turns of luck in the course of one's life, right? but my family, my friends, and fortune is just unbelievable. The dogs, some of the best, some of the worst, some of the healthiest, some of the not so healthy, some of the most talented dogs, and some that are just so-so. I've been so lucky. I can't thank the world enough for everything that's come my way. You know, some people would say, well, you made it on your own. You know, you started a company, you raised a family. Oh, bullshit. We all do something. Everybody's got to go do something. It's either that or you don't do anything, and it wasn't going to do nothing. You didn't do that growing up in Chicago. You knew you were going to be something. You might have been a fireman, garbage man. In my case, a millwright. Doesn't matter. That's no trick in life. That's no talent. Your occupation. But what my occupation led to over the years, it's the friends that I've made. I started doing a quick list, and I just kept adding to it, and it's a scribbled list. I know I had a list of the dogs that I've owned over the years, and I'm gonna redo that list. We're gonna have an episode where I kind of go into a little short history of a lot of those dogs, and some of those dogs have a very short history. But I think back, my friend Frank, how thankful he is now to be a dad, or going to be a dad next year. Next year, he's going to be a dad. We're basically the same age. I wouldn't wish that on my enemy. And it turns out I'm sitting here thinking, I can't believe how happy he is. I can't believe how he's thinking the same thing, how fortunate he is. I've met people over my lifetime. I still know people that I've known since my earliest memories. Most of you know that's Rusty Wolf. But there's a cast of characters. There's Ricky James, David Anagnos, Bruce Townsend, Frankie Beckfar, Eric Sundin, Joe Gorman, Jimmy Karras, Chip Parkins, Bill Walters, Bill McPhail, Mike Carpenter, Gary Bishop, Jerry Bazell, Scott Carlson, Fat Ronnie, Little Ronnie, Rod Johnson, Matt, Danny, Steve, Bill Thorns, Bob Kohler, Scott Bazell. I mean, I could probably just keep jotting down on this paper. These are the ones that came to me in a blink of an eye. And what's funny is every one of these has a little story of hunting with it. Now, I know that sounds weird because a lot of these are childhood memories, but childhood friendships. But we had slingshots. We had bow and arrows. We made our first hunting trip together. Senior year in high school, instead of going somewhere to get drunk, we got drunk in Tennessee, but we didn't get drunk until we went boar hunting. That was our senior class trip with David and Jimmy and Donnie. See, I didn't even put Donnie down here. I am thankful for everything that's ever come my way, the hardships. And when you think about the hardships with dogs, right? Now, most of these people I listed, okay, there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 of them. Maybe 5 or 6 of them. Only because I don't know if Fat Ronnie and Little Ronnie are still alive. Maybe I'm going to say 6 of these people aren't with me anymore. But every one of them, I had some connection with hunting. Every one of them. We've shared a day or an afternoon in the field, or a competition in a field, a hunt test. And these aren't any of the people I met through NAVDA or the Hunting Dog Federation. These are all historical people. If I was writing a book, these are historical figures in my list of being thankful. And then you get into the dogs and the health of dogs. Everyone has listened to this show for a few years. I know a lot of you have listened to it for going on a decade here. I started this show in 2015, so that's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, in January I start my 10th year doing this show. So the friends that I've been fortunate enough to make through interviews, through traveling, through I just thought of more of them. Matt Jorio, Justin McGrail, Greg Blair. I mean, it's like it just keeps coming into your head. You just keep the Harmeyer family. That goes into the dog world, the NAVDA world. I mean, the original names I was telling you had nothing to do with any organization. People I met, shook a hand with, had a drink with, and had something to do with hunting. That's just fantastic. I'm telling you what, I couldn't be a more blessed individual. Everybody's had a lot of heartaches and grief. Everybody. I don't care who you are. I mean, maybe there's some exception to the rule. Young person, nothing's bad happened to them. Shit happens all the time. I mean, I've lost dogs. I've lost dogs at, well, you know all those stories. You don't know all the stories, but you know a lot of them, right? Everyone's lost friends. Everyone's lost dogs. But does everybody realize how thankful they should be? You know, I don't think of this as like a religious holiday, and I don't think about the pilgrims. Trust me. I don't know any of the pilgrims. I don't think any of I think my family was still nestled firmly in Europe when the pilgrims got here. So the history of Thanksgiving for me is nothing to do with historical. It's more like, well, that's what family did. You got together, you cooked a turkey or a ham or whatever. But when Frankie called me today and told me he was going to be a dad and how thankful he was that he was going to get to experience fatherhood. And I was kind of making light of it, thinking, you don't know what you're getting into, Mr. 67 years old. You are going to be an exhausted individual. But I'm going to make a prediction here. I'm going to think Frank is probably going to do just fine because he's thankful. You know, he probably knows half the people on that list of names that I gave you. And we got our first hunting dog together, Frankie and I. Well, it really turned out to be Frank's dog. I happened to talk him into it because I moved into his apartment when I got divorced when I was 21 and a half years old. Okay? Very quick, no kids, no harm, no fault, kind of like a practice run. And I ran home and I called my buddy Frank up who I knew had an apartment. I said, Frank, I need a place to stay. And after 6 months of living there, we used to go pheasant hunting together down at one of the state of Illinois preserves. And I said, Frank, we need a dog. He goes, no, we don't. I said, yeah, you got this apartment here. You own the building. You got a yard in the back. We can walk the dog. You know, I'll be working in town for a while. That was kind of a lie. I was back on the road like crazy. But Frank ended up, we tried to make a hunting dog out of that dog. It didn't work out. That dog's name was Midnight. God rest her soul. She kept Frank company for about a dozen years or better. But, yeah, Frank was, and he was optimistic then when we got the dog. And he basically stayed a bachelor his entire life until about, like I said, 7, 8 years ago. Shocked us all to death, and today he shocked me even more. But when he kept saying, I'm just so thankful. Like this was planned. This wasn't an oops. This was a plan. Okay? And I was like, he said, like, I've got like family now, like my own flesh and blood. And I'm like, yeah, I know, Frank. We're all like, he goes, no, he says, I know what you guys, you know, all my friends that I know, you know, they all, almost every one of them have kids, right? And he's just that thankful. And it just made me think, how the hell thankful I am. I mean, I'm thankful for my journey through masonry that my brother Bill McPhail got me into. Now, he didn't get me into it. He was there for my journey through masonry. And my martial arts instructors who were there for my journey through martial arts. And my new martial arts instructor. That's right. Steve, this is for you. In the life in jiu-jitsu I have now. Since I was 58 years old, I've been doing jiu-jitsu. Took a few years off for COVID because gyms were closed, but what a journey I'm thankful for. The journey through parenthood and grandparenthood. And here it's like one of my friends starting off where I was 40 years ago. And it's just one of those little journeys, one of those little thankful things. I don't think Frank would have called me up if he really wasn't that thankful. And it just made me think about everything, every trip, every hand I've shook, every state I've stepped in, every border I've crossed with the car, every hunting trip I've been on, and the people I've met. And through this podcast, I didn't even try to put a list together through the people I've met through this podcast and the dogs that I've met that they've owned. That list would surpass my life list of friends that had something to do with me in hunting and shooting. It's just amazing. So I hope everybody has had a great hunting trip, a great hunting season, whether your season's one trip or a chain of trips. It doesn't really matter. I'm thankful that everybody listens to this show, puts up with me week after week, listens to my intros, never pulled out on me. None of these guys I've mentioned. You know what's funny? I should make a list of women. Yeah, well, no. Yeah, my wife might get jealous. That list might be longer. But I just want to tell everybody to have a great Thanksgiving. Relish the time you have with your family because you don't know when it's going to be over, or in Frank's case, you don't know when it's going to expand. I think about my next dog. I think about the dogs I'm looking at in my kennel right now. Like, my God. You know, when you think about worrying about, am I going to get off work to go hunting? Or am I going to be able to do this? Or am I going to be able to go drive somewhere? Can I afford it? I lost a job. All them things that come up, all the family things that come up. Everybody has some family thing that comes up, gets in the way, usually called a funeral. But you got to be thankful for every one of them because every one of them molds you into who you are. Now, I hope I do this show for another 20 years. That'll be my prediction. I can't imagine how slow I'll talk and how long the intros will be in 20 years. If I make it another 20 years, I don't know. Hard to say. Might not make it out of the driveway tomorrow. I might not make it off the mat tomorrow. But what I will do is remember that this Thanksgiving and every day is something to be thankful for. And it isn't just the dogs. It isn't just the friends. It isn't just the family. It's all of it. All of it. Remember, all of it is a fortune. The chance happening of fortunate or adverse events, luck. The turns of luck in the course of one's life. Success, especially when at least partially resulting from luck. A lot of people told me over the years, God, you're a lucky guy. Oh, you're lucky to do this. Now, I guess I'm fortunate. Y'all have a great holiday. Have a great hunting trip. If your trip's over and you're back at work, I hope it was a great one. And you got another one to look forward to next year because I remember there was years when I got one hunting trip in a year. Kids, family, career. Oh, sure, I hunted around the house once in a while, ran around the state for a weekend, but I mean one trip. Now I can make 4, 5, 6 trips a year. But you're all going to get there. And a lot of you I know through the show, you've been there longer than I have. You're traveling all over. You're living the good life. But it all came from being fortunate. That's your fortune. It's our fortune. And it's our fortune to have that one common passion. I don't mean the guns. I do mean the dogs in this case. Because tonight, I told my wife, little Vivi came home from South Dakota. And you know the story with Taffy. She died at 2. And I immediately got another Cocker Spaniel. I had to have another Cocker Spaniel. They're just too much fun. And about a week and a half ago, got home from South Dakota. Day after I got home, her eye was kind of red and pussy, and I looked at it. I'm like, she's got really tight eyes. I've never seen any weed seeds get in there. And it was a little red, So I called up my vet, and gave me a prescription for some drops with some, antibiotic in the drops. And the next day, it looked worse. I mean, it looked like Rocky from Rocky 3, right? And I called up my vet, and she says, well, get her in here. And she looked at it, and she goes, why didn't you tell me it looked like this yesterday? And I said, well, it didn't look like this yesterday. Her cheek was swollen up. And I asked her right off the bat, I said, what are we going to do? She says, well, we're going to get her on some antibiotics and some painkillers, and we probably should do a C scan, but we got to get the infection down. But she ran in the back room and did a quick ultrasound with one of the other vets, and she said, yeah, she's got something behind her eye. I said, what is it? And she said, well, it could be the infection. It wasn't something we could determine was like a thorn or a stick or a weed or something like that, but it was behind the eye. And I thought, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to have this kind of luck, right? Is that my fortune to have another Cocker Spaniel? Something's wrong. Am I going to have a one-eyed Cocker, And I was told that's, unless I went to some specialists and I don't know who it is, when they have to get something from behind a dog's eye, that means they lose their eye. And I was feeling a little sorry for myself. That was a little over a week ago. Well, you know what? I'm not feeling sorry for myself. Right now, she's holding her own. Her eye looks great. She's on antibiotics. We're going to face that vet visit come Thursday or Friday this week. We'll see if there's still something behind that eye. You know what? And if little V loses her eye, I still got little V. But little V doesn't know this tonight. But she's going to become a house dog tonight. I've talked about it for a long time. And I talked to my wife about it, who has a Corgi in the house. And Corgi he hangs out with the other dogs, but he's a bully he's a little house bully, right? And him and Vivi get along fine. And I never did bring Taffy in the house. All my dogs live in the kennel, but I basically live in the kennel from 6 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. So they're kind of in my house. They're just not in me and my wife's house. And I told her, I said, I want to bring Vivi in tonight after Newt's in bed. And she says, yeah, go ahead. I thought, my God, how fortunate. All these years, I've never asked to bring any of my dogs in the house. Now, in Virginia, where my other home is, or where I worked for a decade, all the dogs had beds in the house. They all slept with all my guys that worked for me. No, they had a great life. They went into kennels during the day, and they were all house bed dogs at night. So I've had a myriad of that. But little Vivi, I was feeling kind of sorry for myself, and I was feeling bad for her if she loses her eye. But I'm not. I'm going to get off that train. I am still one very fortunate guy with a lot to be thankful for. Again, hope you have a great holiday. I got a great guest coming up next week. You're going to really enjoy this one. And, that's it. It's just kind of like one of them personal moments. I don't know what else to call it. I love you guys. I love you girls. And I love all your dogs better. Or more. No, better. Bye. In normal fashion, I always forget something, so I got to hit the record button in GarageBand. Don't forget, I still need a few more people. Well, I got a lot of entries, but I've got 2 tickets for the Meat Eater live show, which I'm going to be a part of in Kalamazoo and in Detroit, December 10th and 11th, okay? And what I'm doing to give those tickets away, now obviously you're going to have to be somewhat close to there to make that trip, but you need to send me 3 trivia questions that are about dogs, guns, small game, something that I know a lot about, and it maybe the rest of the Meat Eater crew doesn't, because I'm going to try to stump the chumps, so to speak. So don't forget to go write me at Ron B. at the Hunting Dog Podcast. Give me 3 good trivia questions, and the ones that don't make it to the trivia show on the Meat Eater live show, well, they're going to come up and they're going to be part of another episode of Hunting Dog Podcast Trivia. So it's a win-win. And I also wanted to remind you, because I always forget all this stuff, I wanted to remind you that Behind the Dog, that's the film series I've been working on with Matt Giorio. Those episodes, the first episode we did on the short hair breeder, from Legacy Kennels. That's on YouTube, and every week we're releasing another segment from that. Now, yes, you could buy it, and a lot of people, you bought it when you wanted to watch it for an hour straight, but we're making it available to the masses, and we're doing this to try to build up a YouTube subscription, an hourly thing. You know how all that shit works. You know what I'm talking about. So go to my YouTube channel, Hunting Dog Podcast, Ron Boehm, click on it, watch it. You're going to learn about dog breeding. There's going to be there's another one coming up with the Weimaraners. There's one coming up with Griffins. The next one coming out is going to be with Bob Ferris and Poodle Pointers. Come on. It's great. Just go to the YouTube channel, click subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think, because this is a passion project that I'm also very, very thankful for. Thanks. Bye. Oh, yeah, and of course, Onyx, Gunner Kennels, Pike Gear, Boss Shot Shells, Garmin, W Supply, Waltons, Mossberg, Four Wheel Campers, K9 Athlete, Purina Pro Plan, Leinenkugel, and something you're going to be seeing coming up. I'll wait till next week before I tell you that one. Bye.